Hey, good morning, everyone. Thank you guys for coming to our press conference today. I would love to kick it off to Mayor Allers to kick it off, and there we go.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dan Allers, Mayor of Town of Fort Myers Beach. I want to thank Beach Baptist for hosting us and doing everything that they do day in and day out to make sure our residents have a place to come get some stuff that they need, everyday goods, as well as getting breakfast, lunch, and sometimes dinner. I'd like to also thank Deputy Secretary for being here. We have representatives from Orange County. We've got the Mayor from Cape Coral, Commissioner Ray Sandelli, Mayor Holly Smith, Commissioner Ruane, and Commissioner, moving ahead, Mayor Anderson, as well as anyone else that's out there that I maybe missed. You know, Hurricane Ian on the 28th came in and did quite a bit of devastation, not just to our line, but Sanibel and all of Lee County and throughout the state of Florida. And it completely changed the trajectory of where we thought we were going to be going over the next 5 to 10 to 20 years. It displaced a lot of our residents. It put a lot of people out of work and closed a lot of businesses. You know, 5.5 months, almost 6 months after the storm, I'm happy to report it makes me very proud to say we've got over a dozen businesses open. We've got residents coming back every day. We just had a nice walk around in the neighborhood with the Deputy Secretary, and she was able to see how people are coming back and getting into their homes, even though they're temporary as they start to rebuild. But you also get to see a lot of the cleanup work that still needs to be done. With the help of our state, federal, local partners, other municipalities we went through in the region, you know, we've really collaborated together to make the process as fast as we possibly can, keep it smooth, keep it safe, get people back in their houses and back to work. With that, I'd like to introduce the head of our Recovery Task Force in Lee County, Commissioner Ruane.
Good morning, all. My name's Kevin Ruane. I'm the chairman of the Long-Term Recovery Task Force. Hurricane Ian did catastrophic damage to our community when it landed September 28th, 2022. But our commitment to recovery has never wavered. As the chairman of the county's regional task force, I can assure you that leaders from both the private and the public sector are already working to meet the needs for our neighbors and working to rebuild lives and communities throughout Lee County. We continue to coordinate with our federal partners, our state partners, on issues with housing development, infrastructure repair, economic development, and long-term planning. Today I have the privilege of introducing the Deputy Secretary, U.S. Housing and Urban Development, Deputy Secretary Todman. Thank you. In her role under the leadership of Secretary Marge Fudge, one of the Deputy Secretary's major focuses has been HUD disaster recovery work. This is a personal issue for her, as she shared with us, her family in the U.S. Virgin Islands and friends went through many storms, so she knows the devastation firsthand. This is the second time coming back to Lee County. It's my privilege and honor to welcome you, Madam Deputy Secretary. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for that warm introduction. I appreciate it, and for all of you who have joined me here today for this announcement. So today I'm here to bring greetings, to bring hope, and to bring funding that will help make Fort Myers, all of Fort Myers, and really all of Florida whole again. As the commissioner mentioned, this is personal for me. It's work, but it is personal. My own family has gone through the trauma of losing their home, living without electricity for months. And so I understand what it means to look at a community like this and realize that it's not just about the buildings that are empty. It is really about the people who are not here with us today. And so this announcement and the work that we do is in every way to support them and the broader community. But when I was last here in Fort Myers, it was very clear to me that this was a community that was resilient. It was a community that knew that they were going to build back. And so it brings me great pride to be able to come here, not just once again to look at the devastation, but to be able to provide resources to the people of Florida and all of Fort Myers. And let me tell you a little bit about what that support is. HUD has a program that's called its Community Development Block Grant disaster recovery. Many people think about HUD in terms of the assisted housing that we provide, but few people think about the work that we do in cooperation with our wonderful partners at FEMA and SBA to really invest in the long-haul recovery for communities that have been devastated by a disaster. And what those funds are meant to do is to be able to be more aspirational and push the envelope on what building back looks like, not only in terms of how to build back. You know, I heard from the leaders here that this was a storm that we've never seen before here in Lee County. But we can't say that we won't ever see it again. And so we want to make sure that we are preparing this community and families for the next storm, and sadly, perhaps the next storm after that, and building back in a resilient way. But we also want to make sure that our funds are being used for the people who need it the most. And that's very important to President Biden. It's important to Secretary Fudge. And it's certainly important to me to make sure that the people who can least help themselves, the folks who have a deep need for affordable housing, even perhaps prior to Hurricane Ian, that these funds will go a long way in making them whole. So I'm proud to announce that the state of Florida will be receiving $2.8 billion toward that end. And right here in Lee County, we'll be receiving $1.1 billion to help rebuild Fort Myers in a way that's resilient and helps families come home. And we're going to go a little bit further at HUD. Certainly the money is important. But again, we know that these storms continue to come, whether they come in the form of a hurricane, a wildfire, tornadoes, flooding. Secretary Fudge, as I speak, is in eastern Kentucky, making the national announcement on these funds on the back end of terrible flooding that occurred in eastern Kentucky. But we are going a little bit further at HUD and making sure that we are centering communities and customers and survivors in the work that we do. And to that end, we are going to be formally creating an Office of Disaster Management. We're going to be continuing our work with our wonderful partners at FEMA, but making sure that at HUD we are organizing, making sure that we can do everything that we can to be swift and to meet the moment with the urgency that it needs. We're also going to be making sure that we remove as much red tape as possible. We are the federal government. Sometimes we've been known to do that. But we're going to try to make sure we're streamlining so that we are responding to these storms and to the needs of the communities as very quickly as we can. So let me say this to the wonderful leaders and people of Lee County and Floridians to hear the sound of my voice. The federal government is here for the long haul. You know, while some of the images are no longer on TV, while we have moved on, sadly, to other storms across the country, I think about our fellow Americans in California right now. Our job is to be here for the long haul. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And that is why I am here, and that is why HUD will be here, why FEMA will be here for as long as it takes to make sure that we're building back better. It's not just for us, but for certainly all the kids and our grandkids who want to make sure that they're part of the future of Florida and part of Fort Myers. Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Kevin Anderson, the mayor of Fort Myers, and I had the distinct pleasure to meet with the Deputy Secretary shortly after the storm, when our community was still hurting from the devastation. And she made some pretty hefty promises. And I walked out of there encouraged, but as was mentioned, how the federal government sometimes acts or doesn't act. But here we are almost 6 months later. We had those promises, and now we see them being delivered. So thank you from all of us for being here. Hurricane Ian delivered one hell of a punch. It knocked our community down, but it didn't knock us out. And with the help of HUD and our other partners, we're coming back. As you mentioned, we're resilient, but we're coming back bigger, better, and stronger. So thank you.
Well, good morning.
All right.
You just told me to come up here.
No, no,
Would
no,
you like
no,
to
sorry,
introduce
no,
me?
no, no.
That's okay.
I was supposed to introduce my good friend.
I can't
Or at
always be
least we
responsible.
were good friends until now. But Commissioner Ray Sandelli, who represents us at the beach. Thank you.
Okay, there we go. That's okay. Well, good morning. Thank you. You know, Deputy Secretary talked about it's not just about the money, it's about the people. And as I look around at this group here, this is a team down here that's been working together very closely. And you, the press, you know, you've seen it from day one and the devastation that happened and what it did to this community. But here we are, 6 months later. I think we'd all be very proud of the effort. There's more to do. And I'm encouraged by not only the financial commitment, but the personal commitment of people coming down to visit our community and seeing for themselves what's going on. A lot's been done. There's lots more to do. And we hope that together, both the press and the town, the county works together and delivers that the right message for all of our folks. They deserve it. Thank you.
All right, everyone. My name is DeMarcus Fennell. Excuse me for not saying that earlier. I serve as the Deputy Press Secretary at HUD. And with that being said, we will start the Q&A portion of the press conference.
or years since other storms and still have not gotten their homes repaired, demolished, doing what they need to do. And they are concerned that if HUD grants this funding to the state of Florida for that same program, that the money might not be spent expeditiously. So what is your goal in terms of making sure that those who need the help the most are getting that done as quickly as possible?
No, I appreciate the question. So certainly with this announcement, $2.8 billion going to all of the state, but $1.1 billion will be coming directly here to Lee County, and additional funds to 3 other counties, and I'm happy to have the team provide you with those exact numbers. And one of the reasons that we did that is that we've heard about some of the difficulties of having the funds be too removed from the people. And so what's really important to the Secretary is making sure that we are getting the funds as close to the people as possible. It's one of the reasons why we're giving funds directly to the county. It's the reasons why we're giving funds directly to the 3 other counties here in Florida. We're certainly working with our partners at the state level to help them with all that they need to do by way of technical assistance, maybe removing some of the HUD red tape to make sure that money is flowing as quickly as it can to help Floridians impacted by Irma, particularly, and other storms. And so these are just some of the little things that we're doing, having heard some of the difficulties in deploying the funds.
I have a question. You say it's going to directly impact the people who were most hurt by the storm. What exactly is that?
No, thank you for that. So HUD traditionally helps low and moderate income families. And so the idea around these funds is that we want to make sure that some of the folks who lived in homes that were affordable, particularly in this backdrop, that they're able to come back to these communities in homes that they can afford. What I've seen and other people have seen across the country is when devastation like this happens, the folks who can least afford to come back are the ones that do not. So with these funds, we want to make sure that our low-income families, our moderate-income families who had homes here and throughout Florida, and quite frankly throughout the country, because this is a nationwide announcement, that these are funds that are meant to help them come back home and rebuild their homes or build new homes that they can come back to. So it's targeted in a way to help that particular population. Yes, ma'am.
To that question, a lot of people from Fort Myers Beach, because that's where we're standing right now, they're very concerned that like you said, the populations that were historically able to come here, stay here, work here, live, play, all of that, they were concerned that with rebuilding and regrowth after this storm that they would not be able to achieve that goal. So what is the hope in terms of making sure that that is still attainable as people continue to rebuild?
Right. So part of the commitment that the good folks behind me will have to make is that by receiving these funds to go towards disaster recovery, that there is a commitment that we're all making to make sure that exactly what you said does not occur, that folks are not able to come back, that they are able to come back. And so while HUD will be deploying these funds and administering them, we're going to look to the commitments of our local leaders to make sure that what I'm saying gets done, or there'll be challenges ahead. Sure, I'm happy to discuss. So when the strict definition of affordable housing is that you only have to pay about 30% of your income toward your rent or toward your mortgage. And so that spans dependent upon someone's income. So you might have someone who's only making $15,000 a year. So affordable housing would be 30% of their income. You may have someone who's making $75,000 a year. And so something affordable to them would be 30% of their income. So it's based on your income, not just the house.
Mayor Alex, so what do you envision for this for Fort Myers Beach, where individuals that say they got maybe a $200,000 payout, but to rebuild and rebuild higher is going to be $700,000? Are you envisioning that people could then come to the city and request a loan, or what is it that you all are envisioning of this? Or are we talking about building larger housing units, apartment, affordable housing, workforce housing? Does anyone have any idea what you're envisioning with this money?
Well, the important thing from our perspective, and I won't speak for my colleagues behind me, but it's to get the businesses back and the residents back in their homes, because you aren't going to have a community if you don't have that. So however we can appropriate these funds into the hands of those people directly to get them back, as I was telling the Deputy Secretary on our walk around, the more people we get back in the homes, the more shovels we get to help each neighbor, and the more gloves we get on people's hands to help each other out. So the best course of action right now, I can't give you that answer. We just obviously found out when you did. We'll have to work directly with our county partners to figure out how that money funnels down into our community specifically to make sure that we get our residents back in their homes.
And let me add one thing to that. So one of the things that HUD does is right after this announcement, the mayor and others will receive a request from us to send in an action plan. And it's through that action plan that they'll have an opportunity to really talk and coordinate about the best ways to deploy these funds in a way that's comprehensive. So I think I'll give him a pass for today. He just found out.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that.
On those same lines, how soon could the community expect to see these funds start to be deployed? I know a framework has to be created with each jurisdiction, but just out of curiosity.
You know, we've seen it happen very quickly. It's unfortunately there are some parts of the country. I think about areas, Louisiana, some other areas that unfortunately are almost experts in using our funds, and they deploy them very quickly. Some others who are probably receiving disaster recovery funds for the first time need some of our help to think through not just what other localities have done, but also what's actually worked. And so I'm going to give the leaders behind me a little bit of grace right now, because I think for many of them this might be their first experience with HUD's disaster recovery, but we're going to work with them so that it happens very quickly. Sorry? That's a question for the how the work be contracted.
I think we have details yet to be understood before we can move forward on anything.
All right. That concludes the press conference. Before we do that, I would love to acknowledge Regional Administrator Alvarez as well as the Field Director Louise Roll for their participation and hard work. Thank you guys so much for welcoming us down here. If you guys have any additional questions, you feel free to reach out to me or the press team at HUD Press Office at HUD Press Office at HUD.gov. Again, that is HUD Press Office at HUD.gov. And my name is DeMarcus Fennell. Thank you guys for coming out, and we appreciate your time.